Welcome to the Thundercast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The Thundercast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the Thundercast. Follow us on Twitter at Thundercast_pod. And of course, you can follow us on Facebook as well. And please go over to YouTube and click the links in the description and subscribe to the Thundercast YouTube channel as more and more content will begin to go over there. And in fact, the podcast is going to transition to video, we're hoping now, with the Louisiana wrap-up. But today, we've got this weird little thing for Marshall, the midweek game. And we told you in the episode that dropped a couple of days ago that we were hoping to do a little bit of what we're calling the midweek deep dive. So we reached out to the guys from the Ragin Review podcast, and they're going to join us and help us break down the Louisiana side of this game. So you're going to get a firsthand account and perspective of the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns from the guys who follow them closely. We're going to have a packed house here. Russ is going to be joining me, of course. I would imagine there's going to be at least 2, maybe 3 of those guys. So you're going to get inundated with a lot of good information, stats, info, and analysis. So don't go anywhere. This is going to be your midweek deep dive as the herd and the Ragin Cajuns are going to face off this coming Wednesday. So I told you we had something special, the midweek deep dive, right? Because Marshall doesn't normally play these midweek games. Every now and then you might see a Friday game on the schedule, but the herd's on a Thursday this week, or is it Wednesday? I don't even remember. Wednesday. And we've brought the guys in from the Ragin Review podcast who do a fabulous job at covering Louisiana. And we're going to get them in here to give you even more detailed info and analysis for this game. You're going to get their take on the information that I would normally give to you. Normally, I'm the guy picking who are the players we need to look out for and things we need to pay attention to and giving you keys to victory for the herd. Well, we're going to get all of that from Russ and I, but also you're going to get that from the Louisiana side of things. They're going to give you the players that have been hot as of late, the guys that are really dangerous that might have an impact in this game. They're going to give you keys to victory for Louisiana in this game, being that it's a road game in the midweek and all of that. Their first trip to Huntington, West Virginia. We're going to do, Russ and I will continue to give you a Thundercast Players of the Week, and we'll all give a score prediction. But before we get into all that good stuff, welcome to the Thundercast, the trio of the Ragin Review podcast. We got Jerry, we got Nick, we got Josh. Welcome to the Thundercast, guys.
KD, thanks for having us, man. This is exciting. First time ever as a conference mate, I think, and yeah, it might be the first time we've ever made the trip to Huntington.
Well, yes, I looked into that a little bit. So this will only be the second all-time meeting. Football wise, I don't know if our two teams have locked horns, so to speak, in any other sports, but this will be the first trip, obviously, to Huntington for Louisiana in a football game. But let's talk about this Sun Belt real quick, and then we'll get into the game, right? We got 4 new teams that have entered the chat this year. It's all old news by now, but now we're into the thick of things. We're playing conference games. Granted, neither one of us have played any of those new teams yet, but they're here. So let's get some general reaction to what you think the conference looks like, how it feels to you, what's better about it, all that kind of stuff. So, Nick, what about the addition of JMU, ODU, Southern Miss swinging over to the west, Troy swinging over to the west, and the addition of Marshall to the east? How do you like this new lineup?
Well, I think you've seen it already. I mean, James Madison goes on the road and beats App State. You guys beat Notre Dame. I mean, it was an upgrade in talent to our conference. And admittedly, we've been through the whole, let's call up FCS schools to the Sun Belt, but I think we've always been smart about it. We've always upgraded our conference with talent that was proven in the FCS. We did that again with James Madison. ODU has a lot of potential. Again, they go out and they beat a P5 on the road. So it's exciting, one, to get more competitive teams in the West, which we're seeing right now. We'll talk about our performance right now, but the West has traditionally been I wouldn't say weaker, but viewed upon as weaker than the Eastern Division, because you have these powerhouses of App State, now James Madison, now you guys. So it's great to get Southern Miss and then move Troy into our division and make it a little more competitive. So yeah, as a whole, I mean, you look at where other conferences in the quote G5, which is going away eventually, but the G5, you look at Conference USA. I mean, look at what they're talking about, adding Kennesaw State. That's not moving the needle for me and a whole lot of college football fans. So I think as a whole, and I'm speaking for Jerry and Josh, because I think they agree with me, it's been exciting, and we are thrilled to have all 4 teams in our conference.
I think Russ, what do you think about being here? We've talked about it a ton, but we haven't talked about it with these guys. And coming from that Conference USA, like it was a motley crew at best before, but now it's going, you're right. It doesn't move the needle. These things don't move the needle. So Russ, what about moving to the Sun Belt and being around guys like Louisiana, Coastal, App, and JMU on the uptick?
3 major things for me, and I've said all these before, but number 1 is leadership from the conference. I mean, you just feel like Gil and the rest of the crew have a vision, and it's not just football. It's let's improve. I mean, look at soccer. We talk about soccer all the time, but baseball is religion down here in Sunbelt territory and all this. And it just seems like they have a direction and they're moving toward it, and it's great. The second is that we are not markets. We are passionate fan bases. And that's so different, because before you would go to somewhere, we bring it up all the time, Rice is in Houston, but no one in that Houston market really cares about Rice unless they went to Rice. And you can see by going to their stadium, and they sometimes had 7,000 people there, and now we're talking about these programs. Nick brought up a good thing, that you're bringing up a program that's successful. Usually when that happens, there's a fan base with it. Mm-hmm. So you have built-in passionate fans because there's been a history of winning when they have been brought up, not just we're in panic mode, we need to bring people up because we only have 6 in the conference because everyone left. And the third thing is the regional aspect of it, especially with being able to shift some people over to the West and the influx over in the East, and that footprint geographically, easily traveled games. It's so much better now. We brought it up a lot before, but when ODU and UTEP had to play, not just in football where there is a budget, women's volleyball, all the different things that there's no budget, every school was just suffering with that footprint. Now you've got easily traveled games, and I can't wait for these rivalries. So that's my 3 keys.
Yeah, we've talked about this being a huge driver, and even on the national stage, folks took notice and went, look at the Sun Belt, look what they're doing. They're getting back to this regional thing, and fans can get excited about games and they can travel. And that's what makes college football great. Now, look, I'm saying this a little bit tongue in cheek. Okay. I was forewarned that Jerry gives the long answers. So, Josh, what are your thoughts on the new Sun Belt before we slide over there to Jerry?
I'm glad. I appreciate you letting me go first. But look, if you want to look at the league as a whole, I mean, you got national champions in this league. Yep. You got a national championship in Marshall. What was that, last year or year before?
2020 soccer. Yep.
So you got a national champion there. And I know Coastal won it the year before they joined the Sun Belt, but they're a national championship in baseball. Okay. So you add that to the league, that's clout right there. I mean, we pride ourselves, as Russ mentioned, this is a baseball conference. I mean, look at it. You had Texas State was nationally ranked, and I mean, a driver in baseball last year. You had Georgia State hosted a regional. You had us, who was, not necessarily ranked, but we went into Texas A&M and we're the better team for 7 innings of that game on Saturday. I mean, we really pushed that team, and that was a national seed, went to College World Series. So the Sun Belt is, as a whole, baseball wise, soccer wise. Look at the volleyball. I don't know if you guys follow a lot of volleyball, but volleyball, I watched Texas State play the Cajuns last night in Earl K. Long in Lafayette. That was some elite level volleyball. So I know a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to women's sports like we do other sports, but that was some elite level stuff. Go down the list, guys. Football, you go on the road, you beat Notre Dame, you beat A&M, you beat BYU, Coastal. I hate Coastal. Look, they're like the stepchild of the conference, but at the end of the day, you gotta chalk up their accomplishments. They beat BYU. You had one weekend we beat three Big 12 teams, three on the same day. All right, that was I think it was off of the COVID year. Still, Iowa State, Kansas State, and Jerry, want to help me? What was the third one that we beat on that Saturday when the Sun Belt went and made some noise?
Kansas, Coastal beat Kansas.
Kansas State and us beating Iowa State all fell on a Saturday. That was when you first started getting the glimpses that, hey, the Sun Belt is here. This is a whole different deal. You add a program with history and brand recognition like Marshall. You add JMU is on the. I mean, look at what they've done this year. Are you kidding me? What can you say about that program? Unbelievable. App State on the road. Look, you go down by, what was it, 28-3, the vaunted 28-3 comeback. You go back, first ever league game at the Rock, and they come back and win that game. I don't think people talk about it enough. That was unbelievable. That was an unbelievable accomplishment. When you start developing rivalries, and when you start to take those old rivalries, you put them together. All right, like you said, KD. I mean, that's how you build a conference. That's how you build interest. That's how you get a fan base or a fan interest in a conference that's, it's good, it's fine. But when you start really putting those programs together that have a history, and you build those type of environments, and you get the Rock at 30,000, you get Cajun Field at 30,000, you get, I don't know what you guys' capacity is, but that place is going to be rocking when Louisiana shows up because of the history over the last 4 or 5 years of winning. That is important. That's how you build a great league. You guys mentioned Keith Gill. The funny thing is, when Keith Gill got here, not a lot of people liked the hire. We were very anti Keith Gill for probably a year. We're in a year and a half, 2 years. So I think that it made it. The success obviously makes it easier to go out and put your face to a conference. I think that he walked in at the very perfect time for this conference as a whole. But look at everything that has over the 2 years, everything that has that he has been over has improved. Even basketball, we rail against basketball, but even basketball has gotten a little bit better. I think we're going to be better this year. And Keith Gill is, I mean, what are you going to say? I mean, the guy's done a good job. But to your point, as a whole, the Sun Belt, baseball, football, basketball, women's sports, Title IX sports, doesn't matter. It's all better. Jerry?
Yeah, to your point, I mean, KD, we were talking about this earlier, 10 years ago or 15 years ago when I was a student at UL, people were leaving the conference. They wanted to get out of the Sun Belt. They wanted to go to Conference USA. They wanted to go to other, mid-major conferences because they felt that the Sun Belt was sort of a stepping stone. That was what it was. You had FCS teams come in, they get their feet wet at the higher level. So they go to the Sun Belt, they stay there for about 3 or 4 years, and then they leave. And I think that's where that perception changed when when you had 5 or 6 teams leave the Sun Belt back in 2012, 2013 and go to Conference USA, we thought, we're done for because we felt that we were in that same position that Conference USA is in now, where, you have CUSA, now they're adding Liberty, now they're adding Jacksonville State, now they're adding Sam Houston, now they're adding New Mexico State, random teams to survive. And we felt kind of the same way without realizing that Carl Benson had a plan all along to add teams that brought value to the conference based off the tradition rather than the markets. Bringing an App State in, bringing in Georgia Southern in, bringing in Georgia State, bringing in Coastal Carolina, teams that did pretty well at the FCS level. And then you see what they've done in other sports with Coastal winning the national championship in baseball. You've got Georgia Southern competing in baseball. App State has, even though as of late, I know they went to the dance a few years ago in basketball, but they had a decent basketball tradition back in the day. So those schools have added value, a lot of value, a lot quicker than what we expected. And then you saw when App State pulled a few big wins a few years ago, they got in the top 25. Then Coastal got in the top 25. Then we got in the top 25. And that's what added value to the conference. And now you're seeing some of these other conferences, like, for example, the American, they're still going after markets. Well, look, I'll just have a list of the teams going to the American from Conference USA. You got FAU, you got North Texas, you've got Rice, Charlotte, UTSA, UAB, all coming from bigger markets. But really, when you go look at their attendance, when you look at their crowds, what outside of UTSA, what do they really bring?
Mhm.
You know, that's the big thing. And I think the difference between those schools and our schools is we have tradition. You know, these schools that have come to the Sun Belt have tradition. Marshall has tradition. JMU has tradition. App State has tradition. Southern Miss, an old rival of ours, has tradition. Just like you guys in the East playing those teams like App State and Georgia Southern, teams that you've played in the past at the Division One AA level, or it's called FCS now, of course. But that's kind of how we look at Southern Miss. And then we already have these old rivalries with Arkansas State. We already have these old rivalries like in baseball against South Alabama. So I think it's good for the fan interest because you're playing familiar teams. You're not just playing random teams because they're in the city of Miami or Houston or Dallas. You're playing teams with a brand and a winning tradition and passionate fan bases. I mean, for example, we go to Huntington on Wednesday night. You know, Huntington's not a big market, but I guarantee you, you're going to have over 25,000 people in that stadium.
We
You
hope.
can't, yeah, you can't say that about Rice. You can't really say that about Charlotte. You can't say that about UAB, and they're in bigger cities. So I think the value, to your point, Russ, when you brought it up about geography and passionate fan bases, I think that creates a lot more value than a team that's in a city of, you know, of over so many million people. I mean, look, we deal with it with Tulane down here in Louisiana. You go to a Tulane game in New Orleans, no knock against Tulane. I got a lot of friends that went there. I got friends who were fans, but their atmosphere's kind of, yeah, you know, it's like, all right, cool. And they're there. They got a game, whatever. But when you have 30,000 for an App State game, when you have 30,000 for a Marshall game, when you have 25,000 to go see ODU, when you have 25,000 to see JMU, to me, that brings more value to the conference. And then on top of that, these teams are winning and these teams have tradition. Marshall, like I said, you guys have tradition. All these schools have success. So I think that's the importance. And that's why, to us, in my opinion, I think we position ourselves very well moving forward, especially in football. If they, when, you know, they're talking about expanding the playoffs and having those top six conferences host a playoff spot, guess what? Guess who can be that fifth or sixth slot? That puts us in that driver's seat to do that. I mean, just imagine having a playoff game in Huntington or a CFP game in Cajun Field. Because of the model we're creating, that's the value behind it. And that's why, as Cajun fans, we're ecstatic. We're ecstatic to add the 4 teams that we've added.
And KD, real quick on his point about winning. Marshall goes out and beats Notre Dame in South Bend with the SBC on the jersey.
Mhm.
Okay. There's you can't buy that kind of publicity. You have App State goes to Texas A&M with the SBC on the jersey. You can't buy that. That amount. You had you know, the talking heads on Twitter and all across social media that said, hey, P6 Sunbelt, P6 Sunbelt. You cannot purchase that amount of publicity in that respect. I mean, go back 10 years. The Sun Belt was a joke. It was, we didn't even want to go to the games. We had to sit here and rationalize why the conference was any good. To have you guys come in, look at ODU. ODU shows up national television game, first time playing as a Sun Belt member. They beat Virginia Tech. Brent Pry's a guy from Lafayette. So we all watched the game. I mean, these are things. Look at what Southern Miss just beat an old rivalry, an old rival in Tulane this past week. They were a double-digit point underdog. The Sun Belt as a whole is gaining respect, and I don't even think we know all the things that are being, you know, cemented into the legacy of the Sun Belt as we go right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, we talk about all the stuff that is already happening and how short of a time frame it has happened. You know, we're 5 weeks, 6 weeks into the season, and we just ripped off this win, this win, this win, this win. And then you start looking forward and you think, okay, they have vaguely mentioned the possibility of future expansion in this conference. And Keith Gill's like, well, if it's one team, it's one team. If it's four, it's four. It just has to make sense. But I think what that really does is if you start to open that door, you can be so uber choosy about who you bring into that. I mean, they're basically handing them about as good of a lottery ticket at our level that you can hand them. You know, like you come into what's probably the most competitive mid-major conference from top to bottom in several major sports and across several women's sports that go vastly, undercovered or not talked about as much. Somebody or a couple of somebodies are going to hit the lottery in a big way, especially when you talk about something like the college football playoff expanding and having almost a guaranteed seat at the table for someone in the Sun Belt. I think in a few years' time, you won't talk about the American even if some people are still being above the Sun Belt, you'll think, wow, they really went past them on this.
And to your point, KD, and to what Josh said about the value that is created. I mean, College Game Day voluntarily went to Boone, North Carolina to cover the App State game. And then, of course, seeing what App State did in that game, winning on a Hail Mary, again, that's free publicity. You can't put a price tag on that. I mean, that type of publicity. And this is one thing I'll tell you guys, and I don't know if you had this in Conference USA or even in the MAC, but we pull for each other when you're playing other teams. Non-conference, we want the Sun Belt to be as successful as possible.
Except for COVID Carolina.
Except for
Everybody
COVID
else.
Carolina. Yes,
the
but I
hate for
digress.
Coastal is real, man. It is real.
Oh man.
Oh, look.
Don't get me started here on a Saturday morning, all right?
But
It's like I'm sorry, I wouldn't expect that. Like, I would expect that more from a West Division peer. But they're over there in the East, and they're garnering all the hate from across the conference. That's just wild to me.
Well,
That's
when
funny
they
to me.
chicken out of the conference championship game so that they don't have to play us, so they can be in the conversation for New
I
Year's
got
Six
you.
bowl game. That's where,
And might I add, we were we had flown. Our team had already flown to Conway and was at the team hotel when they got the announcement. So they couldn't even tell us beforehand before we paid this crazy price to fly.
Jeez.
By the way, we're canceling. But about the Sun Belt, one other thing I wanted to say was all of these wins, all of the success we've had. That, really one thing that's great about the Sun Belt is Keith Gill, and again, I give credit to Carl Benson, the previous commissioner. We have leveraged ourselves to where, like you said, KD, we don't have to worry about, we have to go get this team. We have to go get that team. We've leveraged ourselves to where we can, not to say get complacent, but we're comfortable right now to where we have a good brand of teams and a good brand of universities. You look at what Conference USA is doing right now, they're trying to survive.
Yep.
I
it
mean,
is.
you go get New Mexico State, and I know they have a good basketball program, but the Sun Belt used them as leverage for a football-only conference. When they started adding teams, they were like, hey, thanks, but no thanks. Go do what you got to do, and kind of let them go. And then Idaho, same thing. Idaho dropped down to the first school in a while to drop down to FCS. So that's another thing about the Sun Belt is we're in a good position. I think you look at these other conferences like the American, for example. I think they're trying to survive. You lose 3 of your teams to the Big 12, your 3 of your top branded teams to the Big 12, but then you go get market teams. I mean, I don't see, no offense, but I don't see North Texas doing what Cincinnati did. I just don't see it. But no, I mean, that's one other thing is I think we can be a little comfortable for a little while with the schools we chose. At the same time, I don't think we want to get comfortable with the results on the field. I think the value of the results on the field is going to carry water. And one other sport, we talk about women's sports, softball.
Mhm.
We have a softball dynasty in Lafayette. When we found, believe it or not, when we found out the JMU was getting added, we were ecstatic because the conference has been fairly weaker in softball. There have been times we've gone 45-5 and been ranked in the top 15, but our RPI wasn't high enough. So we had to go on the road to a regional. Well, now adding JMU in the mix, that's going to add value to us. And so if we take care of business against them, we can host a regional again and host a super regional, and our seating gets better. So there's so many sports outside of just football that we're excited about because of what all of these schools, including Marshall, bring to the table.
And quickly, Marshall's commitment to the diamond sports shows. I mean, congratulations on your new baseball facility. It looks like it's going to be awesome. If we can continue to that dominance on the diamond, that I think that there's a real, I think that if there's going to be upward mobility in a sport that maybe not necessarily be football, it's baseball and softball. And Marshall is prime. I mean, you have the brand, you have the commitment, you have the backing. I think Marshall has a great opportunity to go ahead and be one of those power players in the East. And once you do that, and you marry that with the West, who's been, traditionally a power in G5 baseball, softball, man, this conference, we don't even know we don't even know where the floor is yet. There's too many, there's so much great opportunity with the programs and their commitment to athletics. We don't even know yet, in my view.
It starts to feel like, and I'm by no means comparing the Sun Belt to the SEC, but you see in SEC football, all these high ranked teams, and they beat up on each other all season long, but they still remain ranked and very high. And it starts to feel like this could possibly be what we're looking at. Maybe not in football, but in these other sports, like you talk about baseball, you got a lot of teams ranked. They're beating up on each other because they're all good, but they don't drop in rankings. So our softball team is a little bit ahead of where our baseball team is right now. Of course, they have their facility. They have a winning tradition there in Huntington. And we are Russ and I in particular have become massive softball fans just from the starting doing this show and the reception that we've received from our coaching staff and our players there. So we're big proponents. We're trying to get people to always go to those games. They're such a fun sport to root for, and they win. So we're coming to Lafayette and we're trying to take some dubs from you this year. I don't even want to hear any of that dynasty stuff. It ends here.
Good. Hey, 2 words for you, man. Good luck.
It ends here. But look, we got a football game to talk about. This is an excellent insight from guys that we haven't talked to before on this front. Yes, we've done Twitter Spaces before. That was a couple years ago or a year ago, whatever. And that was fun at the time because it was all hypothetical type stuff. If this, then that, this. But now we're here and games are being played. We're seeing results play out on the field. And it proves that what we were hoping would happen is happening. And a microcosm of that is this game that's happening on Wednesday night, right? This is a little bit of a revenge game for the Herd, I would feel like. We never are going to make excuses for a loss. It's like you lose the game, you lost. But after the bowl game in the New Orleans Bowl, we started learning some things about how this team climbed off the bus, and we were like, geez, no wonder it was tough for them to compete, right? But anyway you slice it, this will be the second all-time meeting for Louisiana and Marshall. The Cajuns are making their trip up to Huntington. The game's going down this Wednesday, October 12th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2, major network, big primetime exposure for a marquee game. For two teams that really look kind of like mirror images of one another in a lot of aspects, which we'll get into early on in this season. Of course, I mentioned this is the second meeting, the 2021 New Orleans Bowl, where Louisiana took the victory 36-21 over the Herd. In that game, Rasheen Ali had himself a day. And that's a bullet point that we're going to have to talk about here later on because, of course, we've yet to see Rasheen on the field in 2022. Will that change this week? No, we will see. So Louisiana sets a 2-3 on the season, currently 0-2 in the Sun Belt standings, currently on a 3-game losing streak. I'm not trying to take jabs here, guys. This is just what the resume says. I'm giving some context, okay? An unforeseen, surprising loss by me at the hands of ULM. Did not see that one coming. And then a loss against what appears to be a better than usual South Alabama team. But any way you slice that, these two losses to the two Sun Belt teams were by a combined 7 points. A few plays here and there, and this is a different Cajun record, right? We're talking about a different team. Even though they may look the same on paper, the record says something totally different. So before I get into some stats, some overall team stats, and we talk about players, give me a synopsis. Josh, we'll start with you this time. In your gut, this is just kind of how I like to phrase it. In your gut, what does this game feel like to you?
Well, you phrased it well when you said it's a revenge game, and we all know how that plays out a lot of times. But let me just kind of talk about the resume. The ULM loss was, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it felt like it set us back in more ways than one. Obviously, you have a team that wins 15 straight. You lose to Rice. You think, okay, you're on the road for the second time in 2 weeks. How is this team going to go ahead and respond? We're up 17-7 with a knockout blow in the hands of Mike Jefferson. He drops the football. We lose the game. We lose the game because, in my view, he drops the ball. If you go ahead and catch that ball, you score. It's 24-7. You're going in a half, and the game is over. I think that you look at the roster, look at the talent on the roster, certainly there. A lot of these guys have not been in position to be the guy for wins for this program. We lost multiple NFL talents. We've lost guys to the portal. We got essentially in the making an All-American in Osiris Torrance at Florida. You got another guy, Montreal Carter, who's toting the rock for Billy Napier at Florida, doing a great job, producing in the SEC. I mean, these guys were going to be people we relied on. So talent-wise, we've lost probably 7 to 10 of our top returning experienced guys. Enough can't be said about new talent moving into a leadership role. I think that's where we're at, and that's why you lose a game to Rice, which, by the way, Rice is legit. Rice should have beaten Houston, and they're probably going to win 6-7 games this year. I think they're a bowl team. They were much better than we thought, than I thought. You lose a game like that on the road, first game on the road of the season, then you go to ULM, and what we all thought was going to be a bounce-back game, you drop a punt, you drop a field goal, you can't catch a wide-open touchdown. You shot yourself in the foot enough to where you let ULM hang around long enough, and they're well coached. Look, say what you want about their talent. They have a great system in place. Terry Bowden's been around. He knows how to win football games. ULM they're not a pushover like they used to be. They're not a doormat anymore, which is great for the conference, by the way, going back to the conversation about the conference. The floor has been raised. So that's a great thing. Anyway, you lose that game. What do you say about that? You come home, you play a very good, by the way, I think the class of the West in South Alabama, very great technique, form tackling. I think their defense is top-notch. They have just enough offense to be scary, all right? I think South Alabama is a class of the West. You take them to the brink. You have a great performance from your defense. The effort was there. Offensively, you had probably one of the worst quarterback performances. And I know we used two guys, but one of the worst quarterback performances we've seen in 5-6 years. Guys, remember that Levi Lewis has been at the helm and the signal caller for three plus years. And before that, you had a guy in Nunez. Well, I don't know if he was necessarily the most talented, but he knew the offense. So he put you in position to win. Billy Napier went 7-7 in his first year in 2018 at the Cajuns as the Cajuns head coach. There was not a lot of talent on that roster. Point is that the quarterback position has pretty much been solved for 4 or 5 years. We're not close right now to solving it. You're going to see Ben this week against Marshall. Ben Wooldridge, he is a good player. He's inconsistent. He's got some good points, some bad points. And I don't know who's going to be backing him up. We have a young guy named Zion Chris who might get some snaps. That might be something to watch out for. But as far as going into the Marshall game, to this point, talent's there. I don't know if the experience level is worthy of winning football yet. We're learning on the fly. You got a new staff. You got a new support system. You got a lot of new guys making decisions. You guys know when you have turnover like that, there's always going to be some level of inconsistency. I think that this game in particular, I think it shapes the season for Marshall and for Louisiana. Marshall is excellent defensively. I would say that we're also excellent defensively. I look for a low-scoring game because of the talent on defense on both sides. But who wants it? I know it's a cliche. KD, Russ, look, you guys, I guarantee you guys are of the internet, of the whole coach interview process. It's cliches. Hey, well, we're good. We're just not there. We're not executing. In this particular case, we're not executing. We're not finishing. We don't have the guys that are going to go ahead and, yeah, we think we should win, but do you believe it? Do you know it? I think Marshall is kind of in that same boat where you got guys that know how to win, but do they really believe it? Do they finish it? Do they follow through? This game on Wednesday, national televised, these are two teams that have tons of talent, but do they believe that they're winners? I don't know just yet.
Yeah, and KD, I'm just going to add on to that. It feels like a big game because you were saying, what does it feel like? It feels like a big game, but for different reasons that I think we both thought it would feel like coming into the season. You guys probably checked off. I know I would have, but you probably checked off Notre Dame as a loss, and you probably thought you'd come in with one loss.
Not me.
We thought we that's my man right there. Russ.
Seriously,
I love it.
seriously.
Hey, I love it. But the worst case scenario, one loss for you guys. For us, probably undefeated or both undefeated. And then you guys have a tough home schedule. So this is one of those games you need to win to get things going. And for us, this is like, a big game for us as well, in that regard. So it's a big game, but for different reasons. Cause like Josh said, this is almost make it or break it for both of us. We're going to see who we are this week on the road as Cajuns. We've already not been very good on the road. So if we go and perform like we did against ULM, like he said, we had a chance to blow them out, and one or two missed catches, and now they come back and they beat us. If we come and play like that against you guys, it's going to be a long night for us. But yes, Ben Woolridge, our quarterback this week, has been inconsistent, but he's also been in a 2-quarterback system where he doesn't get the full game reps with the number ones. And so I get that we have Jefferson, who's got talent, and all these receivers, but every quarterback has different touch. Every quarterback throws the ball a little bit differently. So I'm hoping that after being in the majority of the game last week, he can kind of get into the groove of things. But yeah, like I said, it feels like a big game just for different reasons than I think we both anticipated.
I think it is a big game, right? I don't think Louisiana can afford to go 0-3 in the Sun Belt. I mean, that's demoralizing, right? And Marshall would be 0-2 in the Sun Belt. Granted, both those losses to West teams. We're still learning kind of how all that works. I knew how the system worked in Conference USA, but does a loss to a West team really matter to a Sun Belt East team if you run, your division? I don't know how that works yet. So I don't know if it's as big of a deal as it would be to losing to Coastal and App versus losing to Troy and Louisiana. But anyway, you slice it. Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna cut in
educate
real
me.
quick. Yeah, well, first of all, you want to win the West. It doesn't matter. Get into the Sun Belt championship game. Look, we were 7-7 against I think about 11-1 App State team in 2018. Now we lost the game, but you had an opportunity there to win the conference. So win the West. That's the goal. Here's the thing. Throw the records out. I know that Marshall has struggled. You go on the road, you beat Notre Dame, you shock the world, and you have a letdown. First of all, I wasn't surprised by that. I mean, that happens. That happens to everybody. Not necessarily a G5 thing. That happens to everybody. I think that this is the crux of it all. It's a conference game against two good teams. You guys are good. You have lost some games that you shouldn't have. So have we. It's a scrappy, who wants it more game. On national TV, a league game, I can't be more excited. We're 2-3. The record's not great. Look, I understand that if you're just a regular old casual football fan, you say 2-3, Cajuns going on the road to Marshall, blah, blah, blah. Throw that shit out. This is a game that you want to watch. This is good old-fashioned football, and this is an opportunity, in my view, to start a rivalry, whether it be friendly or not. We're going to Huntington for the first time. We are fighting for our lives. We're up against the wall. Marshall really needs to right the ship because you guys still have a great opportunity to have a great a season with that Notre Dame win on the ledger. I mean, that's still a great opportunity. So lots to play for, lots on the line. Doesn't matter what the record is. And I think savvy college football fans, not G5 fans, savvy college football fans understand that this is one of those games that you got to pay attention to. This is not action on a Tuesday. This is two Titans in the Sun Belt going after each other. I'm excited for the game. I tried to make my way up to Huntington. It wasn't going to work out in the schedule, but I'm sad that I'm missing it. I would love to go on the road. I know Jerry's like, he's grasping at the bit. He's like, oh man, let me say something. So if you don't, go ahead, Jerry.
I thought I was the one that talked too much. I don't know, but anyway.
Yeah, no, it's true. Look,
no, it's okay. But look, guys, one thing you'll know about Cajuns, we talk a lot when we're passionate about things, and we are. And this game is a prime example. I think this is a game of who can make the least amount of mistakes. That's really, and I know it sounds cliche, but really in this particular case, you've got two teams defensively, they're solid. Offensively, trying to find an identity. I know Marshall, there's been a lot of, I'm sure with some of the fans, there's been a little bit of disappointment offensively. I know that there was a lot of expectations coming in. Same thing with Louisiana. Cajun fans, we're scratching our heads right now because we were so used to having an offense that really established a solid run game, had a decent run game that set up the passing game, and we haven't seen neither. And really what we've struggled with this year is we've lost a few guys on the offensive line, and really the brunt of our offensive scheme is a run balanced attack. So our run sets up for the pass, and so we haven't been able to run the ball as well. So this is an opportunity for us. We're going to be challenged with a really good front seven that the Herd have, and this is going to be a big test. And I think our guys are up to it. And I think this 10-day break could not have come at a better time for us. I think the 10-day break was crucial in spite of having to go on the road to Huntington, because I think our guys are going to be a little bit more polished. But I think the way the game pans out is if we let Marshall score early and we let that crowd get into it, I'm very afraid of that. I hope our defense can make some key stops and stop the run, because I do know Marshall runs more of a spread. They like to run. You guys like to run the ball. If that plays into our hands and we can kind of keep the score low through at least a quarter and a half, that's where I think it could be a good game. That's the thing that scares me the most is you don't want to let Marshall score early. You don't want to, and that's another thing about our offense. we've turned the ball over too many times to a point where, and we've done it in bad field position. We did it against ULM. Everything Josh mentioned was true. A botched snap, a missed field goal. I mean, you gave them the ball in their own territory, and it was a 17-point turnaround when we could have won that game by so much more. We lose by 4. So one thing about us, and I know it's cliche, is we've really made a lot of self-inflicted wounds. That's one thing that the Cajuns have done this year is we've just made some petty mistakes that the Cajun teams of the past haven't. And another thing I wanted to mention, we've lost a lot of guys to the portal. We've lost some guys to the NFL. And in spite of all of the talent we've lost, if you look at the team we had last year, with all of that talent that we lost, we beat Nicholls State by 3 points. We beat Georgia Southern by 8. We beat ULM by 5. We beat a 2-10 Arkansas State team by 1. We beat a Georgia State team by 4. And so with all of those close wins, we found ways to win. This time with losing all those guys and losing that leadership in the locker room and still trying to find that leadership role in the locker room, you're starting to see the opposite result. You lose to South Alabama by 3. You lose to ULM by 4. Last year's team, they win those 2 games and they probably beat Rice.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference I find with this team. We've got the talent. It's just a matter of who's going to step up as a leader and how we're going to find ways to limit those mental mistakes. Because a lot of really in those last 2 games, we really didn't get outplayed. We just made some careless mistakes that our opponent took advantage of. Cannot do that this week in Huntington. This Marshall team is good. Cannot do that.
They will take the ball away from you. If you look, I mean, you said this front 7 is strong. I don't know if I'm not throwing jabs here, but if you haven't paid attention to the secondary of what Marshall's doing, you're not watching this defense.
I watched that Notre Dame game, man, and you're absolutely right. That secondary is very similar to our secondary. You're fast. You play great man coverage. You sniff the ball well. Very similar to the Louisiana secondary. And look, we've struggled with the pass game. We've struggled with the passing attack. So offensively, our offensive line will have to play their best game of the year. But again, you go on the road to Huntington and you make those mistakes. Look, that's how you beat Notre Dame. The turnovers, the pick 6, that's how you beat Notre Dame. And so to Marshall's credit, you kind of play it. I mean, we kind of play into Marshall's hands there. But I know we have an offense that has potential to do great things. They're just going to have to do it. They're just going to have to execute.
And KD, to your point about the secondary against Notre Dame, and we all watched the Notre Dame game. I apologize for bringing that up too much, but I mean, the audacity to play aggressive defense, man, press coverage, single high safety, aggressive defense against Notre Dame. The audacity was beautiful football to watch. It reminded me of what we did against Iowa State. The audacity for a G5 team to go on the road and play man press with a single high safety and put pressure on the quarterback. It was beautiful, and you guys executed. And again, to your point about how kind of a mirror image these 2 teams are, in my view, the backbone of our football team is our secondary. I think the same for Marshall.
Yeah, they're just really dangerous at a lot of positions on the defensive side of the ball. Russ, bring it home here from a herd standpoint of what this game feels like as far as Louisiana coming in and the New Orleans Bowl, tying it all in together, and to what Jerry said, an extra 10 days, 11 days off. What might that mean for the herd? So what does this game feel like to you this week?
Must win for both teams. That was brought up before, but Louisiana's lost 3 in a row. And if we lose, our fan base is just going to implode. It's that because, we do have a win in the ledger since we lost 2 games in a row, but it was against an FCS opponent and a lot of fans were not happy. We think weather-wise, caused a lot of the offense stalling. We purposely didn't throw it downfield because of that, but everyone wanted that 500 yards of passing. Hey, we've got everything fixed, that sort of thing. Both teams have got to win this game. It is primetime television on a national channel, and a lot of eyes are going to be on it. People that are in the sports bars that don't normally watch these 2 teams because they play while their teams are playing on Saturdays are going to be able to watch these 2 programs. It's going to be good for recruiting for both teams because you'll have these players that are looking at places to go, maybe even 3 or 4 years from now, but they'll learn about these programs and maybe the style of play, that sort of thing. So it's going to be huge. Anytime that you have the premier game on television for a given day or night, it's going to be huge. But for both teams where they're at right now with the season, it's a must win for both teams.
We talked about Rasheen Ali not playing yet for the Herd. You and I thought that we may see him make his debut against Gardner Webb because it was a lower level of competition. We could see if he was a full go or not, and if he wasn't, we could shut it back down. And then the weather that came in kind of made us think twice about that, right? Maybe this isn't the ideal situation to stick him back in. And so now you mentioned it before, we've got this extended rest period and you're going to get a midweek game. So now does it feel like maybe we might see that debut so that if it doesn't feel right now, you can shut it back down and you've got another 10 days for whatever type of getting it right you need. But does this feel like the spot where maybe Rasheen Ali makes his return for 2022?
Yes. And I had penciled Gardner Webb in before the weather, as you mentioned, for what we said for these three guys' benefit. I said, you bring him in, it's against an FCS school, get him some carries, get some of the rust off. You've got 11 days before you come back and play your next game. When that game is over, you have an additional 10 days before you travel to James Madison. It just seemed like a good spot to get 2 games in with some rest in between, shake off a little bit of that rust. But he's close in my mind. This is not inside info. I just really believe that we'll see him for a limited time in this game, that he'll get maybe a third of the carries or something, and 2/3 will go to labor.
If that's something that we see, guys, it's an incredibly different dynamic immediately for this Herd for this Herd offense, because you're talking about a guy that ran for 1,400 yards last year that hasn't seen the field yet, a guy that led the nation in touchdowns last year that hasn't seen the field yet. And oh, by the way, the guy that was thrust into the RB1 role was 2 yards away from tying the lead nationally in rushing. So to have that type of potential lethality in the backfield, along with 2 mobile quarterbacks that can make things happen, it just changes the whole dynamic of this team. No longer would the Louisiana defense be able to key on trying to stop Kalen Laburn exclusively. We have famously been talking about the struggles in pass protection for this Herd offensive line. Run blocking is not a problem, but pass blocking, it seems to be a little bit of an issue. If you watched any of that Troy game, Troy's defense was all over our quarterbacks instantly, just instantly. It was pressure all game long. We couldn't get any type of passing game going in that. I think our QB1 had like 49 yards passing in that game against Troy, and we lost 16-7. And the defense did not allow that touchdown to Troy. That was a scoop and score early in the game. So it just changes the way things go. So let me give some generalities here. You guys can paint a better picture of what a more accurate snapshot may be in the last 2-3 games ish, but this is season averages. We're talking about points per game, points allowed, that type of thing. Currently through 5 games, Marshall's scoring 29.4 points per game, where Louisiana's roughly 25.5 points per clip. Points allowed, Marshall's allowing 16.2 points per game, Louisiana right around 20. Yards gained per game, Marshall's at roughly 423, with 224 of those coming on the ground. This is a very rush-heavy Marshall team. Yards per game offensively for Louisiana, 327 on average, just 117 on the ground, though. And yards allowed by defenses, Marshall's defense is only allowing 281 yards a game, just 71 yards per game on the ground given up to opposing offenses, whereas Louisiana is allowing 370 yards to their opponents, currently allowing roughly 128 yards on the ground. So kind of where it appears you are a little bit more porous is where Marshall is really good, and not so much the vice versa. You guys seem to pass a little bit better than you run, but we talked about how stingy this Marshall defense is. So where do you think the matchup is, the advantages for Louisiana? Where's the game within the game? I'm sorry. Where's the game within the game for Louisiana to take advantage and maybe have an edge? Jerry, where do you see the primary advantage?
It's really going to depend on our defense. Are you talking about on like as a whole.
Wherever you see Louisiana being able to take advantage of this mismatch, this our pass game versus their pass deep, whatever, where do you think that lies in this game?
I think right now the Cajuns are third in the country in forcing turnovers. I think that's where our strength is on defense. I think we're going to have to, take advantage of whatever Marshall's struggling with offensively. It's funny you say that about the offensive line because it's very similar. So I think that's where.
All right. Marshall has been allowing more turnovers. They popped up a little bit more, and they're not just your run of the mill putting the ball on the ground. They've resulted in points for our opposition. The past 2 weeks, we had a scoop and score against Troy, given up. Last week against Gardner-Webb, it was a pick six early in the game, and that was their only score. So 2 weeks running, this defense has not allowed an offensive touchdown. All points have either become special teams points or defensive scores. Nick, where is the advantage for Louisiana? Where is we have to exploit this matchup right here for Louisiana to have a legit shot to make this happen?
Look, I think we have 3 tight ends that can catch the ball. If we play, look, Josh loves it. Throw it to the damn tight end. We say it every week. And when we do, we're successful. So I think that is the matchup that we need to exploit because you guys you can't cover our wide receivers. And if we go in 2 tight end sets, you're going to have trouble covering those guys. So if we're going to be successful in the passing game, to me, that's where it's going to be. It's going to be getting the ball to our tight ends. And I think that's really it because we need to take advantage of what you guys give us. We haven't done a very good job of doing that in the last few weeks. So if you're giving us the 3, 4, 5 yard passes, we need to take them. And I think that's going to be the key to success is getting our tight ends involved and taking what you give us.
Let me give you something to drive that home. One of the things that keeps rearing its ugly head, and Russ is in full agreement with me on this, we keep seeing Marshall allowing the mid, that 7-8 yard crossing route. It's open every game all season long.
Well, don't worry. We don't run it because for some reason they don't care. They don't want to run the crossing route. So.
Well, that's a shame because our defenses, as how stingy they are seemingly giving up that 7-8 yard crossing route all game, every game. And sometimes, when those aggressive defensive backs try to make that break for the pick, it turns into a long play. We saw that happen against Troy. We saw it happen against Bowling Green. So the aggressiveness at times will bite them. Josh, where is that advantage for Louisiana? Where is the matchup?
And I say it a little bit tongue in cheek. Jerry and I and Nick to a degree grew up with Mike. Our Mike Desermo is our coach. I talk to him regularly, and where are the screens? Where are the bubbles? Where are the jets? Where are the crossing routes? We have no idea. So if you guys struggle with that, fear not. Not a problem this week. We don't do it. We refuse to run it. But KD, I'll say this, man, and everybody says this, but this particular team, for whatever reason, special teams has been a strength for us for years. And look, our place kicking has been inconsistent, but punting, punt coverage, kick coverage, everything. For whatever reason, this year, we can't get out of our own way. We're snapping the ball overhead. We're not covering kicks like we normally do. I will give credit to Eric Guerra, who's been one of the best punt returners in the entire country for the last 2 years. Outside of him, we're inconsistent to a point where we can't even rely on these guys for whatever reason. I don't know what happened. But I think that is an easy fix early on that I can tell you. If these guys come up and execute, we're gonna get better 100% overnight. If we can just get those special teams to play to their ability. So that's one. Number 2, I don't know. There's so many things with this Cajun offense that it's just a head shaker. I don't understand.
What offense, Josh? That's a problem. What
exactly. The stats that you just read off, it is bizarre how we've executed in games. And again, we've prided ourselves on having that nasty offensive line that'll go out, road grade, take control of the football game, make their presence known. It's not been there. Now, we're starting a 6th-year COVID senior at center in Hudson. I don't know how he got injured at the end of the homecoming game against South Alabama. Lance Burton gets put into his place. Lance Burton was the starter that we expected him to start the season, but he had a lingering injury coming out of out of spring, and it just it went into the season. If he is going to go ahead and start at center, I think you have a totally different rushing game on your hands. So that's something to watch. If we can establish a game, and by the way, Chris Smith, our all-world running back, also has a hamstring injury. So we're all wanting to establish a running game, but we got a bunch of kids behind this offensive line that's unproven. And while we think they're talented, we don't know what they can do. We have not seen them produce in a conference game, much less a game this season, I think, outside of Southeastern. So we don't really know what we're going to get out of the running game. If we can't get anything out of the running game, who knows what the passing attack looks like? And to your point earlier, yeah, the passing stats might look a little better, but I can tell you, I'm here to say, the passing game is not good. It's not good. Our routes are lazy. Our route trees are simple. Our quarterback play is inconsistent. And I'm just telling you, with this offensive line, you never know what's going to happen. So many things, so many variables offensively. I can't even really give you a good gauge on what we're expecting. What I do expect is improved play on the offensive line with Lance Burton at center. And we don't know what kind of game shape he's in, so I don't know. But I think that we're a better and a more cohesive unit with him at center. Here's the thing. You're on the road. It's a must-win game. Like Russ said, it's back against the wall. You got to go out there and you got to perform. I think if you remove the self-inflicted wounds, this team is 4-1. And I've watched Marshall enough to know that if you remove some self-inflicted wounds, and look, this is life after Wells for you guys. You guys are still figuring it out offensively as well. There's a couple of times where you need a few things back and you're maybe, you have a winning record, right? I can't wait to see these two teams lock horns. But if I'm just looking at the Cajun side of things, just clean up the execution. Stop getting these horrible penalties, these like things that never happened under Billy Napier, the personal fouls, the inconsistent discipline, whether it be, doesn't matter what unit. If we can just execute and stop getting penalties, stupid penalties in crucial situations, third downs, fourth downs, if special teams can just go out there and do their jobs like they have been for 4 or 5 years, it's a totally different football team. And I think Marshall has some of that as well. But just from the Cajun side, I just want to see, and you asked the question about where's our advantage. Our advantage is we don't know where it is yet because we haven't seen this football team execute. Go out, special teams, go out and just execute. Do your job. It's a totally different football team. The offensive line, just go out and pass protect and road grade like you have been. Jeff Nord came from a service academy. They know how to push people around. I want to see it. Let's see it. It's a different football team. Defensively, we're getting better every game. The defensive line showed up big time against South Alabama. The secondary is what they are. They're talented. They're senior laden. I think you're going to have a hard time passing the football on Wednesday. Here's the thing. Lamar likes to kind of get, how do I put this without being ugly? He gets kind of soft in the secondary when we have a lead or when we're tired because we've been on a football field. I don't know what the time of possession for the season is, but it's got to be like 60%. The defense have been on the field for 60% of the games. Somebody can look that up if you have a second. We got to get off the damn field. We got to get off the football field. Let the offense control the clock. Let the defense do their job and be aggressive. If we can do that, that's an advantage. The secondary is an advantage, especially with, again, you guys, life after Wells. You don't know what you're going to get out of the passing game. This defense can exploit that. Well, you can't do it when you're on the football field for 60% of the freaking game.
Josh, I'm just going to go back to your time of possession comment, and we'll wrap up our side on this. But it's 27 minutes, I believe it is for us, time of possession. But the problem is when you come, some of the games now against Rice, Rice control the game. I mean, their time of possession was insane. But when you look at the rest of it, it felt like the other team controlled the time of possession because of these stupid penalties in crucial moments. And what scares the heck out of me against you guys is that, one, it's a revenge game for you. And two, you've watched game film and you can get under our skin and you can bait us into penalties and we'll take it. So that really scares me the most in this game, is that I know that if it's coming down to the wire, you guys know that you can say something to one of our players, we're going to retaliate, and there's 15 yards and game-changing play.
It's a great point, Nick.
Good. I didn't know that. I'll pass that along to our guys. I'll make sure that they're a little rude during game. Russ, where's the advantage lie for the Herd? We think we know who we are. We're a little bit more questionable on who Louisiana is, as they are questionable on who they are. So during the course of your research in this game, where do you think if anything differently, where the advantage lies for the Herd? Where's the real sticking point?
By far, it is rushing the football. And I know you guys have a good defense. Not taking anything away from it. I've got a little stats here, and this is we're recording as of right now. The noon games on Saturday still have not played, so these are stats before today's games, and all this nationally. But rushing, you guys are 53rd against the rush, and that's not bad. That's really good out of 131 teams. So I'm not taking anything away, but it's 128 yards a game, and we rush for 100 more than that per game. Laborn himself is rushing for more than 128 yards a game. Our backup quarterback, who plays sparingly compared to the other quarterback, has so many rushing yards that he would be second on the Louisiana depth chart for rushing yards. On the stat list, he would be above your second and third rushers. We run the football.
Mm-hmm.
We have a huge advantage running the football, and we're not going to have that, in my opinion. We still have too much to iron out trying to pass the football. It's going to be the rush only. You guys actually give up 31.8 more yards in the air than we do. You're 85th nationally at 241.8. We're 48 nationally with 210. You guys do not rush well compared to what we do. Like I said, our backup quarterback would be second on rushing yards. We are fourth nationally at 71.2 yards a game. So I feel like we are going to run the ball and we're going to stop the run. It's just there's some other things that you guys have advantages of that can sway this game, but our only strength that we're going to have that is abundant is rushing the football and stopping your run.
From an offensive standpoint, that's right.
Yeah.
If you're expecting this Marshall defense or this Marshall offense to challenge your secondary down the field, it's just not something that we have seen this season. Our pass game is bread and butter is the short pass with the catch and the run. That's what they rely on, right? Very few passes have gone downfield. We haven't seen them consistently stretch the field at all. And that's part of the concern. Some of that, of course, is the pass protection issues. If you don't have the time, you can't make the long throw. But these guys seem content to just have the swing pass, the screens, and all that stuff, and let those athletes at the wide receiver and tight end positions try to make a move or two and get down the field. They've been pretty successful. But by and large, it's the legs of Kalen Laborn, his durability to take 30 carries a game and just get stronger in the fourth quarter. And now it's Gardner Webb, yes, but his 35th carry of the game was the one that went for 78 yards, right? That speaks to how strong he is.
Katie, I apologize. I wanted to say, if you watch the Eastern Michigan or East Michigan, whatever it's called, if you watch the game film, they destroyed us with crossing routes and intermediate passing 5, 6, 7 yards. So that is there to be had. I think maybe Lamar Morgan is our defensive coordinator. Maybe he's learned a little bit. He's a first-year defensive coordinator, right? Maybe he's learned something. But I'm telling you that Eastern Michigan offensive attack in the first half, go back and watch it. They killed us on the crossing routes, tight ends, intermediate passing game. Absolutely. Here's the other thing. We have not seen a true running quarterback yet this year. 5 games, we've seen some guys that are somewhat mobile. Southeastern comes to mind, but outside of that, this is going to be a totally different situation for this defense because we have not seen somebody that can hurt us with the legs. So that's definitely something to be watching out for. And I'm gonna be honest with you, in the past with Patrick Toney, we've struggled against mobile quarterbacks because of that attacking style defense. That's something to watch.
Yeah, you will see a true mobile running quarterback in Cam Fancher when he enters the game. He's played in every game this year, including at Notre Dame, and was able to take them down the field, behind his legs. So he is a dangerous weapon. And if you see a return of Rasheen Ali, even sparingly, and we have the opportunity to get a Cam Fancher, Kalen Laborn, Rasheen Ali backfield, which is something Herd fans by and large have been like, this could be dangerous, then it really cranks up that intensity from the run game a little bit because we don't know how vaunted that would be at that point. That's 3 legitimate game break speed type dudes. So let's transition into this, right? We've talked about the advantages of mismatches and where the game might be won or lost based on how we see it. How about a couple of guys from each of you that really you expect to be the guy you must account for in this game? Jerry, we'll start with you. Give me maybe an offensive and a defensive guy, and then we'll work our way around the horn.
Okay, yeah. Offensively, I would have said Chris Smith. I know he had a little bit of an injury last week. He was kind of our workhorse of the offense. I'm not sure what to expect from him this week. But if there's anybody else that I would kind of keep an eye on, I would say Michael Jefferson. He's a wide receiver. He's a senior, 6'4", 205. Got a lot of guys, a good wingspan, can get open, catch passes. He kind of creates opportunity. I would also say both tight ends, and Neil Johnson and Johnny Lumpkin, both of which could play kind of a hybrid between a blocking tight end and a receiving tight end. Those two guys, if we target them, could be pretty dangerous offensively with our passing attack. I also kind of want to mention behind Chris Smith, because if Chris, isn't 100%, to keep an eye on guys like Terrence Williams and Jacob Kabodi. There are two running backs on the depth chart. Jacob Kabodi being a transfer, I think he's a fifth-year senior from, or he was a transfer from Texas A&M. Believe it or not, he played for A&M back in 2017, scored a touchdown against us, ironically, when we played them. It's good to have him on our team rather than theirs right now. He's going to be somebody who he's been banged up a little bit, but he's going to be somebody that's going to have to kind of take the role if Chris Smith isn't 100% with the rushing attack. So those are my guys offensively. Defensively, I'd probably say Eric Garrer. He's a starting cornerback. He's got pro potential. He's also our return specialist. He has scored 2 touchdowns on punt returns this year. A lot of speed. He's very much similar to some of the guys on the Marshall in the Marshall secondary. Just quick. He sniffs the ball well. He's going to be on your receivers like glue. That's just the type of cornerback he is. I also want to say another guy to keep an eye on. It's kind of been the anchor of our defense is Andre Jones. He's more or less a hybrid linebacker, plays on the edge, very fast. He's tall and lanky, so he can get up and, swat some passes down, but he's going to be one of the guys in your backfield if there's anybody to create some tackles. So those are some guys I wanted to mention. We do have a lot of good skill players. It's like we've said before, it's just a matter of who's going to step up, but those are some names to keep an eye on for the Cajuns on Wednesday night.
Josh, who are your guys this week?
First of all, let me say this. I made a comment about special teams, and I really believe this because I think that the talent on the rosters are so similar that I think that it comes down to a kick. I really do, one way or the other. Kenny Almendares is a fourth or fifth year senior. I can't remember how long he's been here. He looks like he's 45 years old, so it feels like he's been here for 10 years. He's got the good mustache, so he looks the part. But look, he's been very inconsistent, but he's one of those guys we've been able to rely on in the past. And go back to South Alabama. If he went 1 for 3. One of those was 51 yards. The other were a miss from 42 or 41 and a miss from 36. So Kenny's got to make field goals, and we love Kenny here on the show. We talk about it all the time on Rage and Review. Yeah. No, I mean, look, special teams here, they're athletes too. They're athletes, all right? So we give them some love, but I got to see Kenny make a field goal in a tight pressure situation. So I think it comes down to a kick. So I'm going to shout out Kenny. Defensively, I want to see Jordan Quibido go ahead and just impose his will on an offense. We lost McCaskill to Kansas. Kansas is 5-0 ranked and hosting game day. So Shout out to the Jayhawks, Rock Shock. But we used to have, for 2 or 3 years, we had Lorenzo McCaskill, Farrod Gardner, guys that, if you watch any amount of Cajuns football, you've seen them flash across the screen. Jordan Quibido has all the intangibles. He's got the talent. He's an older guy, 5th or 6th year senior. I think he's a COVID senior. I want to see him go ahead and impose his will. Go ahead and take over a football game. Be that guy. He had a great game against South Al. He's a local guy. He bleeds vermilion and white. This guy is all about the Cajuns. He is the kind of leader that you want on defense. I want to see Jordan Quibido go out and have a great game. He's going to tackle people. That's what he does. I want to see him cover. I want to see him take over that intermediate game, like you guys mentioned. That pass, those crossing routes over the middle and tight end a game to exploit the middle. I want to see Jordan Quibido go ahead and impose himself. So that's my defensive player, and I'm going to go with Kenny on special teams. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for naming everybody on the roster, guys. That leaves me a whole lot here. Again,
you have a fan that you'd like to mention.
Yeah.
I think Jerry's going to be the difference maker on offense this week.
Look, first of all, it will all come down to quarterback play and how Ben Woolridge manages the game, right? Aside of that, Chris Smith is a game changer. He's our Reggie Bush. Cabote is the run between the tackles guy. It's just a question of whether or not those guys are healthy enough to play this week. Defensively, key for me is to stop the running game, of course, or to contain it, because we're not going to stop it. Zion Hill-Green on the defensive line, I look for him to have a big game. Marcus Weiser, I know he's been a little inconsistent, but when he plays well, he really plays well. So those two guys on the defensive line, I look for them to step up. But my man crush is always my Aussie punter, Reese Burns. He is one of the best in the country. And I think if we're in a tight ball game and we need field position, I think as long as we don't, snap the ball above his head, I think he'll put us in a good position, field position wise, to flip the script there. So I look for and hope for Reese to have a big game.
Well, we see your Reese and raise you John McConnell, a fabulous punter that Herd has. An in-state kid, by the way, West Virginia from Morgantown High School up in Morgantown. Russ, who are the guys? We usually don't do this. Our listeners know who our usual suspects are, but I have ventured to think we will probably have a few Cajun fans listening to this episode since it's so in-depth and so informative. So how about a couple of guys for the Herd that we expect to be the real difference makers this week?
Well, I just have to mention Kalen Laburn in that rushing attack that we just talked about. Whether Ali is back or not, he's got to be the featured back for the first game. Unless some kind of injury happens, he's going to be RB1. And coming off the game that he had, the season that he has had, he's 2 off of the rushing record for this part of the season. 731 yards so far, 5 games. The first game he played only the first half.
Yep.
And he still had 102 yards. The guy is an absolute beast, and he is going to be the guy to watch for Marshall.
I'm going to echo that, of course, and I'll throw a few more accolades for Kalen Laburn of folks that may not know. He's the only running back in Herd history to start his career with 5 consecutive 100-yard rushing games. So you're talking about some real rarefied air. Obviously, you're the only guy to ever do it. And anybody that knows anything about Marshall runners, you don't think of them as this running back factory. But if you start looking down the annals and the record books, you're like, dang, they had some legit runners. There's some big-time yardages here. And Laburn to be the only guy to start his career with 5 consecutive 100-yard games speaks to that. I will also say that the running back room, even without Rasheen Ali, is incredibly deep. We have some young freshman guys that are not just feeling their way right now. They found their way. They rack yardage in a traditional handoff running play type thing. They catch the ball out of the backfield. We saw A.J. Turner catch one last week, took it 24 yards to the house. So it's just another part of that catch and run passing game weapon. It doesn't have to be receivers and tight ends. Just about every running back that we have is also a great pass catcher out of the backfield. So it's just weapon after weapon after weapon. Defensively, I mean, I could really name 11 guys that you have to account for. I really could. But if we're going to narrow it down to I'll give you 3 guys, one at each level. First, defensive line, it's got to be Owen Porter. Nobody has been able to fully contain Owen Porter this year. We ripped off that he's the only player in the country with all these stats last game that Marshall tweeted out. He just flat gets to the quarterback. He's a throwback. You can't miss him. Number 55 on defense with the tucked under jersey and the exposed belly, and he looks like he used to play in 1990. And the attitude echoes that. He's a throwback from a harsher era of college football. Great player. From the linebacking core, you can take your pick between Abraham Beauplan and Eli Neal. Both guys are known entities, tackling machines, and they go sideline to sideline. You have to account for both of those guys. And then, of course, in the secondary, if you're not paying attention to Stephen Gilmore and Micah Abraham, well, you're destined to turn the ball over. That's just how it is. Both guys have 3 interceptions on the season, both tied second in the Sun Belt for interceptions. And we're not even talking about Andre Sand, the transfer from McNeese State, who is having a phenomenal year. You guys watched the Notre Dame game. Number 20 was freaking everywhere in that game. So they're all healthy, and you're going to have to face them all at least at kickoff in this game. So let's talk about a few things, guys. We talked about players that we need to account for. So let's go back around the herd. Nick, around the herd. Look at me doing a Thundercast episode. Let's go back around the horn. Nick, give me 1 or 2 keys to victory for Louisiana. These have to be checked, or there's no shot.
Look, one, contain the running game. Like I said, we're not going to stop it, but contain the running game, force some field goal attempts, and that puts you in a position to be successful. Our defense will always put us in a position to win offensively. So we have got to get our defense off the field. I think that is another big key, is that we have to look, we don't have to score every drive, but we have to sustain drives in this game. That is going to be key, because again, we've got the talent on defense to hopefully contain you guys. But if we go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and have 4 punts, our guys, I mean, any defense in the country is going to struggle against that. So get off the field defensively and contain the running game are my 2 big keys.
Cool. Josh, where do you see it? What's got to happen for Louisiana to have a legit shot here?
Nick absolutely nailed it. You got to convert on third down offensively. You have to stay on the field. You got to keep these guys on defense, which, by the way, again, is the backbone of your football team. You got to keep them fresh and ready to go. Stay on the field. I don't know what our third down percentage offensively right now is, probably in the 30s. I would, and that might even be,
better than you think. 40%, a little bit. Yeah. Well, a little bit better than we thought.
That's probably the Eastern Michigan and Southeastern game. But still, I mean, it's been brutal, man. It's been bad. Even under Billy Napier, it wasn't as good as you would think. We've got to stay on the field offensively to have an opportunity to combat that rushing attack, that intermediate passing game of Marshall. And look, you guys said it. You have threats who are going to rush the football all over the football field. You got to stay off. We got to keep that off the field, and we got to keep our defense fresh. If they're going to chase these people around the game, around the field for 60 minutes. Got to convert offensively on third down.
Yeah, make it 3 in a row. I agree. Got to extend drives. That's been our strength for the last 4 or 5 years, is we've been able to extend drives, and our defense has been able to come in and do what they do best. And we've been able to do it with a run game. Offensive line is going to have to play the best game they've played all year. And that's without question. That allows us to establish a run game, because that's our identity. We're a run balanced offense. So that's very important. Also, too, I know Nick alluded to Reese Burns, and we talk about punters. I think field position is going to be very important. I think believe it or not, the punting game, establishing, punting far enough to extend your drive. That's going to be something that's going to be very important. Pinning Marshall deep in their own territory, and that goes for the same for Marshall. You want to make it as difficult as possible for each offense to be able to move the ball downfield because of the strength of our defenses. So I think field position is going to be very important. Also, too, Cajuns can't make goofy mistakes. Can't commit dumb penalties after big plays on offense. Can't turn the ball over. Can't do that on the road. So offensively, extend drives, field position, don't make goofy mistakes.
Fair enough, right? These are hard enough to do in a normal game. And when you're back against the wall in a kind of must-win scenario, these things get amplified, and you really start to feel that pressure a little bit more to make it go right. And that's where you see these leadership, senior heavy teams kind of rise above. So fortunately, you have a lot of guys that do that, and they can be that voice in the locker room, say, hey guys, let's play our game, chop wood, keep working, whereas a more youthful team might panic a little bit and allow things to get more out of hand. So we'll see if that leadership can finally become a cohesive voice and provide some strength, right, in these clutch type situations. Russ, let's give our listeners the keys to victory for the Herd. I've got 4 this week. How many?
I've got 4.
Nice.
I've got 4.
My man. All right, you can start it off.
All right, but before we get into those, I have to bring something up, because you guys all talked about third downs. This is something that I had for later, but it kind of fits more right here. Right now, out of 131 teams, this is talking about your defense. You guys are 123rd in the nation on third down percentage, and you're allowing 47.5% conversions.
Whoa.
Marshall is 5th. So almost as close as you guys are to the bottom, we're even closer to the top, only allowing 23.6% of the time.
Wow.
Are you trying to kill our spirits right now, Russ?
No, that's an eye opener, man. I would not have guessed that.
No,
I kid. I'm joking.
No, I'm not, because here in about 5 minutes, that's when I'm going to kill your spirits.
Oh, this is an appetizer.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Get another beer or 5. You're going to need it.
What's the first key to victory for the Herd this week, Russ?
we have to have pressure on their quarterback. We have to get sacks and hurries. They have talked about their offensive line and struggles and things like that. In 5 games, they've given up 7 sacks, and that's it. To me, I mean, you guys might complain about the 7. We've given up 19, so we are looking at, we have got to pressure your quarterbacks. We feel like that we can stop the run. Our run defense is strong. Your rushing attack is not anything that we haven't seen already this year. And that's no knock on that. It's just we have seen some rushing attacks. We control the run, but we have got to get in the backfield, cause hopefully force some turnovers due to hurrying on passes, tip balls, throwing into double coverage, but definitely sacking the quarterback, which will help a lot with another point that I have coming up later.
My number one key to victory for the Herd this week is what I'm calling stay the course. For 2 consecutive games, Marshall has allowed their opponent to go ahead early because of an offensive turnover that resulted in points for the defense. And for the last game, they kept fighting, kept chopping, and were able to ultimately go on 28 unanswered points to cruise to a victory in a relatively ugly type atmosphere. Against Troy, that didn't happen. They moved the ball, they got down into field goal range and things like, but we could not make it happen. We couldn't overcome that early gift, their early touchdown gift. That's a trend that must end. The early scoop and score, the early pick 6, the gimme touchdown has to stop. So as odd as that may sound, and we all know as fans that those things just don't sustain. You just don't continually allow a defensive score early in the game. For 2 weeks, we've allowed it. And it's a trend that just must stop, and it must stop this week. That's my number one key to victory this week. No early defensive touchdown allowed against this Herd offense. Russ, what's your number 2 key to victory for the Herd?
We have to limit, if not outright prevent, turnovers. They are amazing at forcing turnovers. They have 10 interceptions on the year in 5 games, 2 a game. They have 4 fumble recoveries, almost 1 a game. They are getting right at 3 turnovers per game. And if we allow that, if we have 3 turnovers or more, it could get ugly. And we have got to prevent that. I'm not going to say that we can't have 1, but we definitely cannot allow them to have multiple or feast and have even more. They're averaging 3, but if we come in and get careless how we have been the last couple of games on some of these, and especially give a scoop and a score or a pick 6, we just cannot do it. So we got to prevent these turnovers.
It's a fair point. It's not only about these defensive touchdowns that are allowed. That game against Bowling Green, we've said many, many times, was lost because we fumbled twice inside the 5-yard line.
Yeah.
Twice. If that doesn't happen once, you probably go in for a touchdown there and you have a different game. So we feel that pain about something going one play here, one play there, and you're looking at a different record.
We're 4 plays away from being undefeated this year.
My number 2 key to victory is limiting those penalties. I can sustain a few. I can handle the, a few here or there, a false start or whatever. But what killed us, it didn't kill, we won the game. But what was frustrating was that Kalen Laburn would have easily eclipsed 200 yards rushing last week, except he had several decently long runs, 8, 10, 12-yard runs called back on a hold. And those are the type of things we said against teams like Louisiana and moving forward will kill you. They will be difference makers in the game. It didn't matter against Gardner-Webb, but Louisiana's not Gardner-Webb. So you can't have that. If your running back can bust out a 10-yard run, 12-yard run, and reset those downs, well, hell, you can't have a hold to put you at 3rd and 15 now. We can't be doing that kind of noise. So that, for me, for the first time this season, the old penalties, limiting the penalties key to victory has come into my top 4. Russ, what is your number 3 key to victory for the Herd?
Well, that just happens to be my 3rd, is limiting those penalties. They've been trending upward. Not all of them have been offensive line, false starts, and holds, which, we've brought up on the show. But any penalties that we get, defensive penalties, all of this, we have got to do a tighter job of it. And all 3 of the things, a little bit of foreshadowing, are going to affect my number 4 that I'll get to after you give your 3rd.
Okay. Well, my number 3 key to victory for the Herd is to remain aggressive on defense. Ain't no reason to stop now because it's worked all year long. And until these guys, these Cajuns, can prove that they can consistently outgun your aggressiveness on defense, there ain't no reason to stop. There is no reason to give them, free 5 yards, 6 yards, 7, whatever, man. You're going to have to come up and punch us in the nose before we back off a little bit. And that's something about this Herd defense that I've just grown to. I've fallen in love with more and more and more each week because they haven't backed off. You talked about having the audacity to go to Notre Dame and play with that type of mentality. Well, if you can do it in South Bend in front of 77,000 people, then you can do it in your home crowd in front of playing a Sun Belt foe, right? So the environment that they've played in already is more, I guess, more vaunted than what they're going to be facing. They're the friendly confines of the Joan. They're like 99% of the crowd is going to be on their side. So there is absolutely no reason to dial it back unless you just are proven that you can't contain these athletes and you just start getting out athleted and these plays start getting made on you. Then you revisit. But for now, just remain aggressive. It's working. I mean, we get to the quarterback. We tackle with sure hands. We punch the ball out. We go up and get those interceptions on contested balls. And that's been a huge key to Marshall's success. So for me, that's number 3, remain aggressive. Russ, what's your last key to victory?
My final key to victory is something that each of the Cajun brethren there brought up, and that's field position.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to win this field position battle. Whoever wins this field position battle throughout this game, I feel, is going to have the upper hand. So we have got to do it. My first 3 keys to victory, if you think, are all going to reflect that. If we put pressure on the quarterback and get sacks, we're pushing them back, most likely making it harder for them to get first downs when we get those sacks, pushing them back further on the field. Preventing turnovers, we will keep going down the field instead of giving them a shorter field to work with turnovers. And also lack of penalties that will prevent yardage going in the wrong direction there. We have got to win the field position battle. It's not just going to be McConnell pinning them back inside the 20 or inside the 10 or the 5. It's not going to be all of that. We just have got to continue to keep our offense on the field and keep them having a long drive every time that they face getting the ball.
Yeah, I think that's an uphill battle, right? Sustained drives against this Herd defense just don't happen very often. We either get exploited on a blown coverage and it just goes for a big chunk play touchdown, but we haven't seen too many teams just methodically go down the field on this. It's just really hard. It's really hard for them to do. My 4th key to victory is take all the points. For last 2 weeks, we've seen missed field goals. We've seen penalties take us out of drives. We've not been able to we had 8 punts against Gardner-Webb. And that was something to me, it was like, that shouldn't have happened, right? But we weren't even in position to get down the field in order to try a field goal. So we're going to have to do a better job of getting in that kind of area of the field where you can attempt to put some points on the board. I'm along the thinking with everybody else. I think that points are going to be kind of at a premium here. I'm not seeing no 10-6 game or 9-7 game, but every field goal is going to matter. Every punt that doesn't go 40 yards plus is going to matter. So you got to take all the points. Reese Veerhoff is going to have to right the ship a little bit, and start hitting and connecting on those field goals. He's been 0 of 1 the past 2 weeks. So we need to see more of those go through the uprights. I really feel confident that Kalen Laburn will find the end zone at least once. Columbi, for his lack of eye-popping pass yardage, has still been able to account for a couple of touchdowns every game. So we still think there will be plenty of offensive production, but those few opportunities you have to get field goals, you're going to have them. You're going to have them. They're going to come into play in a big way, even if it's just giving momentum back to Louisiana off of a miss. That's the kind of thing that you have to capitalize on. And that has to start now. We've been able to weather those storms, but the storm is upon us. The Sun Belt season has started now, and it is upon us. We have to right all those things. if we do all that, Russ and I think that the Herd can get a victory in this game. So, guys, we're going to do a little thing that we call the Thundercast Player of the Week. That's our guy that we think is going to be the key factor. We want to include you in that too. So, for lack of a better term, I don't know if you do this on your show, but we're going to call it the Ragin' Review Player of the Week. Who is your singular guy, the guy that's going to be the difference maker and account for a Louisiana win? Jerry, who's your guy?
I got to go with Ben Wooldridge. We cannot afford to win a game with a game manager. We're going to need a quarterback that can make the play and take that extra effort in doing so, because our offensive line hasn't been up to par. So when the brunt of your offense, which is the run game, hasn't been established because of the offensive line, that's when the quarterback has to step up. And so I expect Ben to do just that. I think he's due for a really solid game. He said last week he was very disappointed in his performance against South Alabama. So what better way than a 10-day break to redeem yourself? And this is the golden opportunity for him. So I think Ben Wooldridge is that guy.
Josh, are you mirroring that thought, or do you have a different guy that you see going off this week?
I think the quarterback position has been down because of other things. I don't necessarily think the quarterback position is a detriment, because I think we have guys that are talented. This is what I'm going to go with. It's going to be a little bit off the cuff here, but Jax Harrington. Jax Harrington is our right guard. I want to see Jax Harrington be the dog, DAWG, on the offensive line, because right now we don't have one. We need a dog on the offensive line that's going to take charge and say, hey, we establish the line of scrimmage. We come off the ball at the point of attack, and we dominate. We made a living under Billy Napier on that motto. 5=1, guys. 5=1. We have controlled games for 4 and 5 years on just having that cohesiveness on the offensive line. Jax Harrington has all of the talent, has all the tools. We need somebody to set the tone on the offensive line. He's the guy. He is probably, in my view, as far as ability goes, he's the next offensive lineman that's going to go to the NFL. We put 3, 4. Well, if you count Osiris Torrance, anyway, don't want to go down that road. But we've got NFL guys that have come out of this program over the last 3 years. He is the next guy. Is he going to stand up and be the dog? The dog, DAWG. We need him. I need Jax Harrington to show me something today, against Marshall on Wednesday.
That's an interesting. Not too many guys go with an offensive lineman, but I like the little bit of going out on a limb here. Like, I need to see something type thing.
KD, where are you getting player of the game, offensive line, game changer, special teams? Where are you getting that? Only on Ragin' Review, baby.
That's why I love you guys. That's why I love you guys. All right, Nick, who's the guy? Who is it?
Look, I think I'm with you. I think it'll be a game of field goals. But I think in order to do that, our punter Reese Burns is going to have to pin you guys deep. He's a rugby style kicker when he needs to be. And I think that might be, I know you guys are strong with your punter as well. So that might be a key. So we might be putting back and forth like a ping pong
not.
Game,
but
It's a one-way game, hopefully.
but yeah, I look for aside from Woolridge needing to step up and have a big game, I think it'll be Reese Burns putting us in a position to win.
Another interesting pick. I was really expecting to hear like the stud DB or the running back's going to bust out in a big way, but an offensive lineman and a punter, the quarterback. Yeah, I understand that. Right? So basically the guy that touches the ball every single play on offense. I get it. We have a nickname for our punter, John McConnell. I call him Mr. I-20 because every single punt seems to go inside the 20 when able, if we're not backed up too deep. This will be an interesting game within the game that we're probably not exploring as much, but when we go back and we do recaps of this game, it would not surprise me to go, man, what a showdown between the punters. And as hokey as that may sound, it could happen.
No,
Russ.
It's not hokey. It's legit, man. You're talking about field position in a game with defenses. I think, in my view, the defense will rule the day. I want to invite you both. Ragin' Review post game right after the game. We do it every game.
We do
too. You guys are invited to come on. Let's talk about our picks.
Yeah, I mean, we try to do a post game spaces as well. It seems to be a really fun thing for the fans to get engaged with. So we'll have to do something, even if we can't do the live post game, we'll have to do something and maybe revisit this game because we'll have 10 more days before, so we can really make this a midweek deep dive if we want to get back into it post game. Russ, who's your guy this week? Who's the Thundercast Player of the Week for Russ Livingood?
Well, before I do that, Josh mentioned that he needs someone that's that dog. And I just have to mention that Randy Moss Randy Moss called me dog once in college. I can't even say it now because KD's busting out laughing.
The running joke. But you might as well tell the story. I mean, it's a quick story. You might as well
Give
how
us
it
the
went
story,
down.
man. I gotta hear about this.
Well, it's epic first, and I don't know if it's that quick. So I lived in Twin Towers, and
The dorms.
I've got my backpack on. I came from class. I hit the up arrow to go up, and the doors open. Randy Moss steps out, and he goes, "What's up, dog?" And that's it.
That's the lifelong story he's been telling for 25 years.
I'm riding with it. That's great. That's fantastic.
But it's just this run. Randy Moss called me dog once. It's just that thing, and it's become a larger than life anecdote. And he tries to work it in whenever he can. It's great. Russ, who's your Thundercast player of the week? By gosh.
Kalen Laburn. I feel like he's going to get 150 maybe on the ground because we might see Ali.
That's true.
So he might have less carries or whatever, but I think that he still busts out for 150, which is no small feat. But I just feel like he's going to continue his momentum. I think that he has a target now when you're 2 away. The leader's at 733 and you're at 731, and we're going to know where that guy or anyone that's above him stands. And I don't think he'll be counting yards or anything like that while he's in the game or looking at the scoreboard or the stat sheet or whatever, but he's going to be running with a purpose, and I feel like he's got a statement to make, and he makes it on Wednesday.
I agree. I've learned my lesson about getting cute and these off the wall picks, right? I've learned now that it is Kalen Laburn until it isn't, right? I don't have to get creative with. He's just been that guy. He's been the guy. If he doesn't produce at the level he's been producing this season, Marshall is not as successful as they have been, period.
Go ahead, Josh.
I have a thing real quick. We didn't spend a whole lot on Ali, but the fact of the matter is if he plays, even if he's a threat to play, changes the defensive game plan.
No,
that's the fact of the matter. And especially that, look, the last time we saw you guys was in New Orleans, and Ali was the best player on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. So I think that just the threat that he plays changes the game. And we didn't spend a ton of time on it. And obviously, you don't want to spend a ton of time on a guy that hasn't played yet this season. But I think that he can be, without even stepping on the field, he can be one of those game changer type guys that you have to game plan for. And it really changes the plan defensively for the Cajuns. That's my view on that.
Yeah.
It's true. Even if you suspect that he may play, you have to account for him because it's a massive detriment if you don't and he takes the field. But back to what I was saying about Laburn, we've talked about him being a one-year guy. He's got a lot to prove. It has to happen for him this year. There is no more eligibility, and he's done a lot so far in this season to prove that he can play at the next level. But I like what Russ says too. If you're 2 yards out of leading the nation, when people were counting you off, they had written him off before he showed up at Marshall. He was a 5-star bust. Went to Florida State and just never did anything. That's a shame. Well, he proved that that's not true. He comes to Marshall, you get a breath of fresh air. The RB1 situation happens the way it does leading into the first week of the season, and he gets his opportunity. And all he has done is dazzle week in and week out. A few hiccups here and there, fumbles. Yeah, that's going to happen. That's football. But I have learned until he is not the guy, he is the guy. So until Louisiana can stop him, he's the guy. I mean, period. I don't have to get sexy about it. I don't have to get, hot takey about it. There are a number of guys that could have career days, or bust out that are just due, right? They're just due. But until they do that, it's Kalen Laburn. That's it. That's it. We're going to go around the horn one more time. We'll give it a score prediction. Nick, we'll start with you. What do you got for the Cajuns and the Herd this Wednesday?
So I think you guys open it up with a touchdown quick off the bat. But I think we settle down. We score a couple times on our own. I think with your kicking woes, there might be a couple of missed field goals, but a couple of made field goals. So it will be a weird 17-13 score. Louisiana wins.
Okay. No hate there. A little lower than I'm figuring, but okay. Josh, what do you got for this Sun Belt budding rivalry?
Listen, nobody's gonna like what I'm about to say, but here's the thing: we're going on the road. Okay, we're facing, in my view, the type of offense that you guys run is our kryptonite. That's my honest take. I think that the Cajuns have made a living on the type of offense that Coach Huff and his staff want to run. We perfected it under Billy Napier. I think that we're struggling to find out identity right now. And if I'm being honest, if I'm getting red pilled, whatever the kids call it nowadays, I still think that we have some deficiencies offensively, especially on the offensive line. There's a reason why I called out Jax. There's a reason why we talked about the offensive line. I think Marshall wins 23-16. That's my real prediction. If I'm betting, like if I'm putting money down, I think Marshall wins 23-16. My heart wants to see the Cajuns win 21-10. Couple of turnovers in that prediction, but listen, I'm not a fool. I know what I see. You guys play football. You play football. I watched football here in Lafayette for 5-6 years. I know what can be done against this offense and against this defense. I think you guys are the worst nightmare for what we are right now. And it's on the road. I think it's 23. At least you get through 23 on this defense because they're tired. They're tired. It's 23-16, Marshall. Unfortunately, sorry, Raging Review fans. I apologize. I mean, I'm just being honest.
No,
Yeah,
no need to apologize.
I went with my heart because I don't want the blowback. So
I respect the honesty, right? I've picked the Herd to lose this season as well. And I mean, just sometimes that's the gut feeling, and that's what it feels like, man. And you're under no obligation to just blindly pick Louisiana every week. I mean, I think we as podcasters, the guys that do this type of thing, you do a disservice if you get on your show and you feel like you're just a homer. If
Thank
you're
you.
real and authentic,
Thank
it
you.
might ruffle some feathers, but people will go, well, he's right. He's kind of right. And that's the way I try to be too. Everything is not always hunky-dory and Kelly green and white and beautiful. Sometimes it sucks, and I'm okay with saying it sucks. So I can respect that. Jerry, where do you fall? We're split here. Which side of the fence are you leaning on?
Honestly, I think it all depends on again, I keep going back to it, who makes the least amount of mistakes. I feel that right now, to Josh's point, we're not playing the best brand of football, and you're going into a buzzsaw when you have, traveling to Marshall. Because Marshall right now, you lost that game to Bowling Green, but yet you've made up for it since. You're clicking in certain aspects, even though you do have some weaknesses as well. But obviously, you're clicking better than we have been in the last 3 weeks. So I'm gonna go, if it's my heart, I'm gonna say Cajuns 24-21. My head, I'll probably say Marshall 21-14. I think this is going to be a low scoring game. I don't expect any team to pull away. Now, I will say this: if we make some mistakes and turn the ball over early and let Marshall take advantage of that and score early, that is the worst case scenario for the Cajuns. But if our defense is able to step up, kind of limit that rushing attack with Marshall, and we're able to extend drives, and it's within one score at halftime, I like our chances. I really do. But yeah, again, my heart, Cajuns 24-21. My head, Marshall 21-14.
What you got, Josh?
And KD, real quick, I just realized I was very generic in what I said. When I say that you guys play football, I mean, people, you guys know you're college football fans. I mean,
I know what you meant.
When I say football, you run the ball and you play defense. You play football. You don't just try to spread everybody out and throw it over their heads. Look, in my view, that ain't football. Football is lining up 11 against 11 and running it down the damn throats. And then when you line up 11-11 on the other side, you stop people. And that's what you guys do. And that's what we built literally, that's how we were successful for the last 5 years. So you guys play football. And in that regard, we are struggling to find the identity in the context of playing football. So that's what I'm basing my thought on.
I understood exactly what you meant, and I get it. You don't have to run every trick play and all these trickeration type stuff to try to get a win. Marshall can line up and beat you if they can. They can just line up, do nothing super special, and run it down your throat if they're able to get a few blocks here and there. Russ, what's your score prediction for the Herd in Louisiana?
So here's where my new Cajun friends really get mad, and they can at me all week long before the game and after the game and all that. This defense of theirs is a paper tiger compared to our defense that is real. They have the takeaways, and it makes it look a lot better than it is. But if you minimize those takeaways, they do give up yards. They do not keep people off on the third down. They're not preventing that, which is giving people more chances and opportunities. And we come in for revenge. We were winning 21-16 in that game, and Ali was controlling that game. I agree with Josh. He was the best player on the field. And then that punt return targeting call changed everything. But I tell you what it did too. Go back, all four of you guys, and KD, I know that you've got it up and geared to play at any time.
It'll be used. Yeah.
Kobe Cumberlander. You look at him, and that is one thing. I saved it. I didn't want to say he's going to be an impact player, but he's not the only one that's going to be bringing the intensity from that. I don't even know if the guy is going to play that made that hit. Is he still there? No? Okay.
Jerry Wilson is no longer on the football team.
Okay. Well, that's probably a good thing, because I think Owen Porter is going to be remembering that hit. I think that Kobe Cumberlander is going to be remembering that hit. There's going to be a lot of that. There's going to be some passion in this game. There's going to be a purpose, and I don't see us running away with it, but we're 10 points better, 27-17.
Okay. 27-17 is really not that far off from where I'm seeing this game too. I see this as a hard fought, little bit higher scoring game, just because I think each team will throw some punches, and some of those punches will land. The defenses will make their plays and all that kind of stuff. But, in a game like this, where there's a little bit of blood boiling, at least from the Kelly Green side, there will be some shots taken, a little extra aggressiveness, things that we haven't seen, some of those unsportsmanlike penalties type things from spilling over from last year's bowl game, maybe. And Russ is right. If you go back and watch that clip of that punt return, after it's over and they're showing the sideline, you'll see who the guys he's talking about. They were ready to go into the field of play and bring the smoke. And they're still on the roster, and they'll be playing on Wednesday. So, of course, that's going to be viewed by these guys. We would, if we were playing, we'd go back and watch those clips, right? We'd get amped up and charged up. So we're going to see a little bit of that competitive spirit bubble over a little bit. And referees might have to take control of the game a little bit at certain moments, especially if there's a ticky-tack call and it flares up. So I like the Herd at home to hold serve, remain undefeated at home this year, get that first Sun Belt Conference win. Like I said, I like it a little higher scoring, but I still like it to be a tight game. 28-24. Marshall wins this one in a more than respectable effort by the Cajuns in a rebuilding year, in the beginning of a rebuilding era. Marshall's kind of in that same deal. Defensively, we know what they are. They've got a one and done at the quarterback one position, Henry Columbi. So we know there'll be changes after this year and all that moving forward. But I just like the Herd to do enough, make enough plays, and get enough stops. All things being considered equal, even if the turnover margin is equal. I think the Herd converts a little bit better on third down. I like them to get a few more stops on third down. Those will be the differences in the game. We may see one of those fluky defensive scores or a special team score. Your guys got 2 on the year. We've yet to see our return game, kick or punt return, break out. Coverages have been good, but we haven't seen anything mind-blowing from the return game. So those things all add up to keep it close. I like the Herd 28-24 to get that first ever Sun Belt Conference win. Guys, the one thing we haven't talked about at all in this game is the fact that it's the blackout for Marshall. A whole nother element. Marshall has never worn a black helmet, and they are debuting them for this game. The fan base has been clamoring for them for years, ever since they really started making the 75-week game a thing. The black uniforms, they still don the white helmet. The helmet you see over my shoulder is one of those memorial helmets with the names and the helmet stripe and the Young Thundering Herd logo and the 75 on the other side. So this week, they're debuting black helmets for the first time ever. And you want to talk about guys being amped up, that is going to push it over the top. It's a blackout for the crowd. I fully suspect you will see everybody bought into that for this game. So the crowd should be at another level than they normally are. And they power the Herd to a tight, hard-fought victory. Guys, let's get some final thoughts about this game before we close it out of here. Nick, What's your final words here on Marshall, Louisiana?
Well, I think regardless of the outcome, I think it's going to be fun. Again, this is definitely a must win for us, borderline must win for you guys as well. So I expect it to be hard fought. I don't think anybody's going to run away with it, and it will. We'll see which team is more disciplined this game, and I think that will have a lot to do with the result on either end. So should be a fun one, boys.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. Josh, all right, we've talked all the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes, and it's time to talk about what you think it's going to be. What's the final word, the final synopsis, the final Josh synopsis of this game?
Well, I'm going to use my time to just kind of brag on you guys. And
Thank
Okay.
you. All right,
No,
good.
no,
You've got an hour. Go ahead.
Hey, look, I'm not trying to endear myself, but I'm going to tell you right now. We have toiled away in the Sun Belt for so long. We're charter members of the Sun Belt. It's been tough. It's been rough sledding for a while. You had the Western Kentucky came in, they didn't have a program, and they beat us on our home field for the first time ever. Willie Taggart, by the way, big shout out. But here's the thing, man. We have weathered a time in our football program's history that was not anything to talk about. And here we are podcasting with Marshall. And we're going into a nationally televised game on a Wednesday that has real implications about how this league is going to play out. Guys, I don't know. I mean, you guys have had your successes and you've done the Coosa thing, you've done the MAC thing, and we kind of started the show with the Sun Belt. We're in such a great position to enjoy this game, to enjoy our programs in a way we've never done it before. I look forward to just sitting on the couch. I couldn't make it to Huntington. Didn't work this year, but I will. In 2 years, I'm coming back. I want to go. It's on the bucket list, by the way. Anyway, I'm looking forward to just grabbing a beer, putting the game on, and watching good football. Good football. Just enjoying it. And having this conversation with you guys is it's indicative of where we've come as programs. And for us personally, the Ragin Cajun brand has really taken a big step forward in the last 10 to 15 years. But to be able to have fun with you guys and look forward to a football game and get excited about a game and have our fan base talking about a game in the conference with Marshall, I don't think that we don't spend a ton of time on it, but I think that it should be pointed out. This is good times. This is great as a college football fan, as a Ragin Cajun fan, as a Herd fan. You guys have got to be excited about where you're at as a program with regard to the league. I know we are. I'm excited to watch a good football game on Wednesday. Look, if we win, I'm going to be devastated, and we're going to do a post game, and I'm going to holler and scream and do all that stuff. But guys like you and Ragin Review and all the other podcasters that do a fantastic job in this league, this is just all it is just a result of good and intriguing football and intriguing anything, entertainment, just getting involved with our programs and going out on a limb and taking our time to just have fun. It's fun, guys. It's fun. I look forward to a great football game. Unfortunately, I think the Herd come out on top, but I just want to have fun watching football as a college football fan.
Well, I think we definitely are going to deliver that as a league and as individual teams running up and down our individual schedules, as a league across the board. There's just so much like hype around this. Everybody seems happy. And I know that's a lot of that's going to fizzle out when we start beating each other every week. And that's cool. I'm looking forward to that too. But for now, yeah, Russ and I love where we're at. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Jerry, final thoughts on the matchup as we head in towards Wednesday. It's growing ever closer.
Well, first of all, I feel honored to as a Cajuns fan to be the first school that Marshall hosts as a Sun Belt Conference home game. That's amazing. And also too, for us to be able to play a team against like Marshall as a conference opponent, a team with so much tradition, so much, just so much pageantry to your program, it means a lot to us. And again, I've said before, we were in a conference at one time that everybody was trying to leave. And the fact that Marshall came in wanting to be here in the Sun Belt, it just adds value to what we have. And it just goes to show you that you want to be associated with us. And that means a lot to us as well, just like we want to be associated with you. So I think this matchup is going to be one of those gritty Sun Belt matchups between two solid teams with a lot of potential, a lot of talent. And, we get to do it on the national stage. Anytime you get a national televised game, it's free marketing for the conference, but it's also free marketing for our programs. And it's complementary to our programs and the fact that ESPN wants to even air it. So I'm excited about the matchup. Obviously, I hope the Cajuns can right the ship and get things going. I know it's going to be a massive challenge in Huntington, but to Josh's point, it's good, hard-nosed football between two respected programs, and I cannot wait until Wednesday night when the Cajuns take on the Thundering Herd. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well said, fellas. All the way around. Well said. We've been looking forward to this ever since the announcements were made that we were leaving Conference USA. We felt like we were toiling in, purgatory for a while, that we were in a place that really wasn't going anywhere. They had no vision. They had no, desire to be anything. And even if they did have the desire, it didn't look like they had the vision to make that happen. So to be surrounded by programs that, we have a history with, Southern Conference days, App State, Georgia Southern, teams like that. That brings back a different era of Herd fan. The ones in those early 90s that really were like, man, this was good football. What you say, this was football. Southern Conference football at that time was real football. So to be able to revisit that and rekindle that on a whole different level is something that we've been looking forward to for a long time. Before I give my final thoughts on this game, Russ, how about some final words on Louisiana Marshall?
So my final words on this all focus around the tailgate. And, we're going to be doing Thundercast Live, but the sponsor this week is me and my company that I work for, Boyd Cat. I'm going to have some great customers there, but we're doing a low country boil, and it had nothing to do with us going up against the Cajuns, who are famous for their seafood boils. And because this is not a Cajun boil that I'm doing, it's from that low country of South Carolina, Georgia area. But if you haven't had a low country boil, I consider it to be one of the best, if not the best, tailgate foods, because you just stand around the table while you're talking football and the game and eat up. We're going to be over there. I'm going to be there around 3:00 to set up, get everything going. We'll try to have the food out by 5:30, that sort of thing. And we'll have a lot of good times, and we hope everybody stops by. And more than anything, if you need to rent equipment, if you're a contractor or whatever, give me a call. Find me on Facebook at Russ Living Good Equipment Rentals and Sales. And my company, Boyd Cat, based out of Ashland, Kentucky, but we also have stores all over our territory. Just go to Boyd Cat, look it up on Google. You'll find a place close to you.
I hope you guys are able to tune in to Thundercast Live. That will go live on our YouTube channel. It's kind of our live tailgate show. It's something we started doing this season, obviously with the onset of the football season, and it's fun. We get a little live action from the tailgating vibe, the stadium vibe. It's a lot of fun. The whole thing is powered by our friends at Ignite Link, who do a phenomenal job in producing that show. If you might have an opportunity, I'll be at work, unfortunately, so I won't be, able to take part in Thundercast Live this week, but maybe you guys touch base after we get done recording here, and, there's an opportunity for you guys to maybe come on and talk, be part of Thundercast Live and talk about the game in real time before kickoff. But look, to all of the points that you guys made before, I'm going to repeat myself a little bit. Marshall is thrilled to be in the Sun Belt Conference. I don't think you'll find too many Herd fans, if any, that see this as a negative move. The trajectory that Louisiana has been on for the past couple of years is pretty awesome, and we know it speaks to the level and the quality of hires that you make. That's kind of the world we live in. You make the right hire, you go up, you don't hit a home run with the next one, you're going to fall backwards a little bit. It is what it is. But for this point in time, for the past 4 years, 5 years, Louisiana has been a fun team to watch. I don't think that it's too far away from rekindling those things again. There's an excellent baseline there. And you get a few pieces in place, a few guys to develop, and you're going to be right back to where you were, right? Competing. So to be a part of that and to really hear, this is something that gets lost on me as a Herd fan, because I've been surrounded by this program for well over 2 decades. You lose track of the fact that people view you as a quality opponent, as a quality peer program. We don't think about that. At least I don't that often. So it's nice to hear, like, we wanted to be associated with you. And I think more Herd fans need to know that. We do a decent job of knowing who we are, but we also forget, how well we have it sometimes. We do have a passionate fan base. We do have a really rich history, and we do expect to win. And it's nice to hear that other people are like, that's the kind of school we want to be associated with. People that care, people that want to compete, that put a quality product on the field. I will say this, if you ever make the trip to Huntington, I know you guys are talking about, I can't go this year, maybe in 2 years, whenever you can make the trip to Huntington, you will be met with hospitality unlike any other in the country. That's just how we roll in Huntington. There are 2 Division I programs in this state. You don't have to go too far to figure out who the other one is. By and large, our reputations across the nation are polar opposites, right? As well as we are hospitable and thankful that people make the trip and want to make you want to come back. We'll feed you and talk ball with you and shake your hand. Thank you for coming and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we'll hate you between the whistles because we want to win, but we thank you for making the trip and we want you to come back. Just as we are that way, the other team kind of goes the other way with it, and they have a reputation for being a little bit different. So all those things you just said kind of hit a little bit. I didn't, I don't think about it that way, but as we maybe talk to more of these Sunbelt podcasters and do more of these shows, it's always nice to hear that. And I want to say that I am happy to be associated with teams like Louisiana because you guys care too. And I want to echo what Josh said about having the guts to come out here and be a podcaster and put your face and your voice out there and say things and do things. It is a little courageous, right? And it's not always well received. And we always do this from a place of passion and a place that's inside your heart. But sometimes folks don't agree with what we say.
Yeah, and honestly, who cares?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I do, but I don't.
If you have the wherewithal and you have the knowledge and you have the want to put your face and your voice out there for the masses, what does that say about the way you feel about your program? I mean, these two guys, us three, we put our heart and soul out there. We work hard. We spend hours and hours every week to try to put out a good product because, look, believe it or not, cultivating our fan base has been an uphill battle. You guys have had several years, decades of some sort of history and success. This is new for us. We've been doing this for maybe 10 years. So let me tell you, the local media mafia, they don't like us. They don't want to hear it. They want to have their own glory. They don't like the way we do things, but we're going to continue to show up. We're going to show up on Sundays. And we're going to show up on Wednesdays. And we're going to talk about the team. And it doesn't matter what they think. We are here for the Ragin Cajun brand. We are here to promote the university that we graduated from. We love this place. We are trying to get businesses back involved. We're trying to get the fan base to just rally around a program that deserves it. You guys, look, we want to be associated. You made the comment. We want to be associated with people like Marshall, with programs like Marshall, with the ODUs and the App States and all the guys in the East. And it's great. But we also want to take Troy and elevate it. Look, I'm not a fan of Troy. F Troy. We want to beat Troy in everything we do. But we want to elevate them, right? We want to elevate the ULMs. We want to elevate the Texas States. We want to elevate every program in this conference. Except Coastal, they can get out of here. But we want to make the Sun Belt Conference, the P6 is kind of a joke now. Everybody kind of makes fun of it. But we want to play in the league that gets the most respect in the G5. And to Nick's point, the G5 thing is going away. And we want to be viable programs. At the end of the day, we want to be viable programs. All right. That's the end goal. You guys have the same goal as us. But before I get off of here, I know, KD, you got to wrap it up. I just want to say, you guys do a fantastic job. You and Russ, just the fact that you get up every week and you produce content and you send it out to the masses, you guys should be commended. You do a great job. Your product is fantastic. Your love for your program is exceptional to me. I mean, Nick, maybe have a comment on that, but I'm just happy to be associated with people who care. That's all we've ever wanted. We sat in here with Georgia State for 10 years and nobody showed up. No shot at Georgia State, but look, it's just the fact of the matter is that you guys care. You bring something to the conference. You make it worth showing up for Saturdays. If I'm a regular fan in Lafayette, we're playing Marshall. Oh, good. Well, I'm showing up to the game. We're playing App State. Well, I'm showing up to the game. You got to have a viable conference if you want to matter nationally. I think we've achieved that. And you guys are a big part of it. Keep that passion going. keep getting up there and talking. Doesn't matter who agrees with you. Keep putting your face on there. It doesn't matter. You guys are great. I appreciate you having us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Listen, let me put a little of that shine back directly onto the Ragin Review, right? When I had the concept idea and I was working out how I wanted the Thundercast blueprint to be, I looked at what you guys were doing and a couple of the other podcasts around the Sun Belt, and I wanted to use some of those elements. So the fact that what you're seeing us do, some of the things that you're seeing us do, I pulled from what you guys do. So you helped turn my initial idea for the show into something better. So there's a little bit of pat on the back directly right back to you guys. You know, we've interacted before the Thundercast was a thing. So I knew, you know, some of the things that were going on at Ragin Review, and I wanted to echo because they're good and they work. So thanks for, you know, being creative. Thanks for putting out a quality product and captivating the audience that you have. I know that people care because they listen. So I can't thank you enough for joining the show, guys. Again, this is the Ragin Review podcast. Find them anywhere, basically, that you can find your podcast. Somebody we'll have the links in the show's description, so you can go subscribe on Spotify or wherever you want to find your favorite podcasting outlet. Probably has the Ragin Review podcast. Russ, this turned into an epic episode. You know, I was expecting we might fill an hour or so. Here we are 2.5 hours into this bad cat. So what was going to be the front half of an episode is now an episode. So there's no way we could tack on another hour and a half to the back end of this thing and make people hang out for 4 hours. We're getting really good at putting these extended episodes out. So thanks once again to the guys from the Ragin Review podcast. Again, the game is going down Wednesday night. We cannot thank them enough for joining us. We'll try to get something, maybe if it doesn't go 2.5 hours, for a post-game recap later on in the week after the game. But this was a lot of fun. We will definitely do more projects in the future. Russ, I guess since this is going to be a standalone thing, take us the heck out of here.
Yeah, as always, whether you see us at the dot, whether you see us at the cam, whether you see us at the vet, whether you see us throwing down in the C lot on some low country boil where we're getting ready to beat our new Cajun brothers, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the Thundercast. We'll see you next week. Later.